We don't see the full story, the real story in almost anything that we're seeing. In fact, our perception of reality is often tinted by so much that reality is very far from what I see and what you see are often wildly different. So, who is right? What is real? One of the things that our daily practices are helping us to recognize is that what we see may not be the full story, the real story, even. We've come to day 9 of ReWired, and we have started to recognize the influence of our past in what we see today. And now we're really starting to step into understanding the power of that and the shaping of it. So I want to start today with a parable. But first, this is day 9 of ReWired. Welcome. I'm Jamie O'Connor, and I am your guide in these 365 days of daily practices to help you rewire your brain for miracles. I know as a high achiever myself, who has stepped more fully into teacher and spiritual wisdom, I have spent lots of time being spiritually curious and trying to navigate what that means when I also want to be ambitious, when I also am ambitious, and I love that part of me. This ability to take one small step every day to rewire our brains actually serves to help us embody the full, truest version of ourselves, allows us to hold both parts in a really beautiful way. And today we are starting to explore the idea that what we see is not what is true reality. I want to tell you a story that is based on a parable, myth, however you want to call it. It dates back to about 500 BC, and it was seen in India. There is largely Buddhist underpinnings to it, but it's also been seen in other religions, Hindu. So we don't know exactly where it came from, but it's been around a long time. And that is the story of the elephant and the 6 blind men. Now, you may have heard this story before, and if you have, it's always a good reminder. And if you haven't, I hope it brings some ahas for you. So there's an elephant, and standing around it are 6 blind men, each one in a different spot. One is holding his hand against the side of the elephant, and he says, "This is a wall." Another is holding the tusk, and he says, "This is a spear." The third is holding the trunk, and he says, "I think this is a snake." The fourth is holding an ear, and he says, "I believe this is a magic carpet." The fifth is holding a leg, and he says, "This is a cow." And finally, the sixth is holding the tail, and he says, "This is a rope." Now, there's so many lessons and ways to take beautiful wisdom from this story. And the one I want to focus on today is that each one was coming to this experience with its own past, its own beliefs, its own understandings, its own programming. Each man had his own life experiences that helped him determine what this thing is. And each man is not seeing the full picture, the full story, the real story. If we zone in on the man who was holding the ear and felt that it was a magic carpet, You could have had another man hold an ear and say it was a fan. You can see how not only is each man standing in a different spot, not getting the full picture, telling its own story, each man's own experience is also feeding into that. And so if we can know, much like the allegory of the cave that I had you watch at the beginning, that where we are standing may not have all the information, and that's okay. Then we can start to take empowered action to change that. And also move into full acceptance that we may never have the full story. And yet we can experience deep love without it. So now I want to take it into what I believe, because I tend towards the analytical, which again has helped me discern a lot and also kept me from leaning fully into my spiritual side. So I like to bring in information that is based in the advancements of science that we actually have access to today. And what I want to tell you about is the growth that has happened in the understanding of how the brain is actually working and why this theory, if you will, of not having the full story is actually proving true. So in the advancement in the last 20 years of psychedelic research, they have started actually doing CAT scans and EEGs of those on various different psychedelic medicines or drugs, if you want to look at it that way. And what they have found is that patients on either psilocybin mushrooms or LSD, their brain, when it's scanned, looks the same as a 5-year-old's. What does that mean? It means that their pathways have all opened up and it's allowing so much more information to flow through than what is happening with somebody of the same age, adult age, that is not on psychedelics. Now, if you know this world at all, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, that's totally okay. Think of a 5-year-old and how they're interacting with the world, how they see magic everywhere. Now, we can't stay in that state forever. And in fact, if you are an adult and you do sit with too many psychedelics, you can very easily set yourself up for psychedelic psychosis. It is too much for our human brains and the experience of life that we're living today to be with all the time. That's the reason that our brains develop beyond that point as children. Now, there are people who don't, and navigating that for their life is very difficult. But there's something here that is really, really important to recognize. So, one of the things they've come to realize after studying this is they started to look at how brains are developing over periods of time. So, around 7 years old, your neural pathways start to close down. Your brain starts to pick the ones that are most relevant to the information that you have, the experiences you have in life, and how you are going to thrive the most. Sometimes this is also survival. What do you need to survive the situations you're in? And it starts to close down the pathways that you don't really need in order to either thrive or survive. And now this happens slowly over time from about 6 or 7, really through the rest of your life, but really dynamically and rapidly until about 21 to 26. And it's in this time that, in a way, you could look at our programming comes into play, our beliefs, our structures. And you can see how, even if our perception, if that opens up, and if you've had the experience in psychedelics, it can, we see and understand and have neural connections of so much more. And we can't live that way all the time. You can see how we don't see the full story. And maybe we're not meant to. The other beautiful thing, and part of what we're doing here without the need to take psychedelics, is we can rewire. Our brains are incredibly, incredibly plastic. They're malleable, and we can change the routing of these pathways. We know this now. And even with these small daily practices, that's what's happening. So that's part of why showing up and staying committed is worth it. It's also why we can change the story. We can see a new story. And we can start to rewrite and rewire the experience that's happening inside our own minds. Okay, so now on to today's practice. When we do today's practice, we're doing the same as we've always done or have done the last few days. We are going to take a few different times to look around where we are, and we are going to identify people, places, and things, and just notice. I am not seeing the full story of this microphone. I am not seeing the full story of my husband. I am not seeing the full story of this house. You can also use, I am not seeing the real story. Whichever one feels like it resonates the most for you, use that. Okay, so now we're going to take a moment to ground. Feel where your body is connected to the ground. Notice the centering of that place, the weights connected to it. And really take some time to put your energy there. Noticing the feeling connected to that place that you are grounded into. Notice the energy that it brings to you. We may be noticing through these practices what may not be real, what may trying to be open-minded to the ideas that we may not see the full story. And in doing that, it's so important to feel the connection to what is real. So grounding becomes more and more and more important the deeper we go into these practices. To really feel that sense of the weight. If you're able to do this without shoes on, some form of your skin connected to the ground, do that. And if not, that is totally okay. And if you are able to today or in the future to start to do this practice with your feet physically on the ground in the dirt. Now, if it's winter for you, I understand you may not be able to do that, but some connection to actual earth, that may be something you want to start integrating into these practices at some point. Don't allow that to keep you from doing the practices, because anything you can do is enough. So as you connect to that weight, the groundedness, and wherever you're touching, start to fill your body with your breath, filling all the way down to your stomach, to your chest, up through your throat, your head, and then releasing twice as long as you let in. Relaxing your tongue and your throat as you take your next breaths, filling up your body, and slowly releasing out. Allowing this breath to feel life-giving as it fills your body, and releasing as you let it go. Taking in only what you need, releasing what you don't. Closing your eyes to be connected with that breath. Taking a few more in your own time. And as you feel that sense of connection, of presence, open your eyes, look around, and start the practice for the first time today. Noticing with no weight of importance the various things around you. Naming it and recognizing you don't see the full story, or you don't see the real story. Now do this 3 to 4 times today. If you have capacity to expand it to 5 times, then do that, but no obligation. And allow yourself to notice any feelings that come up. And by feelings, I mean the sensations in your body, not what you're thinking. Notice if anything becomes tense, crunchy. Notice tingling. Just take note. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you for your commitment, for your devotion. Thank you for your discipline. I will see you on day 10. And if you have stumbled upon this video or this audio somewhere on the internet, this is ReWired. It is 365 days in order to help you rewire your brain for miracles. If you would like to join us in getting a daily reminder to do this practice and the potential to be held accountable for it, then don't be afraid to go to inspiredfocus.link/rewired and make a commitment to your transformation, to stepping into your full self. I'm Jamie O'Connor, and I'd love for you to join us. See all of you on day 10.